All right, everybody, welcome back in. This is the 22 off season for the Kansas City Chiefs. We are working our way steadily through the roster, and there's going to be a lot of numbers involved again today, just like last week, but not quite as many. We'll do some player assessments. So today we're talking about the offensive weapons, which starts at quarterback. We'll cover the wide receivers, the tight ends, and the running backs. If I feel like this video is getting too long because we've got 20 names to cover, I may cut it in half and have part one and part two, but we'll just see how it works out. Let's start at quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, had another fantastic season statistically, had his struggles, as we all know. I'm not going to get into that today because I've hit it so extensively on so many videos for the entire season. So we're not going to talk about Mahomes' ups and downs this year, his good moments and his struggles. What we are going to talk about is his cap number, $35.8 million. Okay, it's a big cap number. It's not the biggest in the NFL. It's going to keep growing as the years go along. It's going to get up to 40, 45, $50 million. But this year it's at 35.8. If they want to restructure this thing again, they can. If they want to, take $5, $6, $10 million, I don't recommend that. But it's there if they need it. If the brass in Kansas City is feeling pressure to win that second Super Bowl, and I'm sure they are, and they're feeling like we've got to do it now. We've got to do it right now this year, and we want to be aggressive, then they can restructure this contract again. Now, I don't like doing that. That continues to put more money on future seasons. And as I always say, you're probably sick of hearing me say it, you're going to want to win just as much in 23 as you do in 22. And you want to win just as much as 22 as you did in 21. So every season's important. And I don't like kicking finances off to future seasons. But I understand these are humans. They have pressure. And sometimes that pressure pushes them to have to make aggressive moves. So if you want to go to the bank of Patrick Mahomes again this offseason and restructure some amount, it's certainly there to do. For the Chiefs, at least it gives them that little bit of wiggle room. Another big cap number, but again, it's going to continue to grow. So $35.8 million for Patrick Mahomes this season. Chad Henne is a free agent. Now, I've been advocating for a couple of off seasons now, nothing against Chad Henne, but I've been advocating for bringing in a younger quarterback. I'm not suggesting using a first-round pick here, but somewhere, third, fourth round, maybe even a fifth rounder. I would love to see them bring in a young quarterback here, somebody who's very fast, somebody who's very mobile, and somebody who's either very accurate or has a very big arm. The only reason I say that is if Patrick Mahomes were to go down, bite your tongue, knock on wood, man, if Patrick Mahomes were to go down for 4 games or 8 games, what's your game plan? Because he's basically the centerpiece of everything you're trying to do. If he goes down for any period of time, what's your game plan? And what I would want, me personally, again, I don't coach in the NFL, but what I would want is somebody who gives defensive coordinators something to work on and think about. And that speed factor, that mobility factor, and there's a lot of guys in college who have it. The guys who can break out of the pocket, and you can design plays for that. And you can roll them out, and you can bootleg them, and you can design runs for them. It gives the defenses something to think about. If they are also extremely accurate, then you can design your pass plays for that. If they're not very accurate, but they have that big cannon of an arm, you can design your plays for that. You can build for that. And what that does is even if Mahomes were to go down, that gives you a chance with your backup quarterback to make defenses uncomfortable. He's not going to be what Mahomes is, of course, but you just want to make defenses very uncomfortable with your backup quarterback. If teams look at your backup quarterback and they're just chomping at the bit and they can't wait to get to your backup quarterback, you don't have a good backup quarterback. And by the way, not a lot of NFL teams do, but I would love to see Kansas City bring in a young guy through the draft, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, bring in somebody who is fast, who is mobile, who presents that dynamic to defenses, and who either is very accurate or who is just got a boomer cannon of an arm, one or the other, and that allows the offensive coordinator, while Mahomes is out, it gives him something to work with instead of, oh, let's hand the ball off 40 times a game. So, and that's what I'm looking at. So for me personally, and I've been saying this for a couple of off seasons, I would like to see them move on from Chad Henne at backup. And of course you have, I think it's Shane Buechele back there, I think at third string. I don't expect us to see him, but again, the coaches have a better idea of that. They've been seeing him in practice. He's at $825,000. So that's basically your quarterback room for this year. I'm gonna go ahead and hit running backs, okay? Running back to me is an interesting position. You got 5 guys, right? Darrell Williams, who was your quote-unquote workhorse back, not your 1,000 yards kind of guy, but Darrell Williams, Jerick McKinnon, Derek Gore, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then as your fullback, you had Michael Burton. So those are your 5 guys. Darrell Williams is a free agent. He made $1.6 million last year. I would love to see them bring Darrell Williams back. There's no question about it. He had 47 catches for 450 yards. He had 144 carries for over 550 yards. Those are amazing numbers, but that's production. That is solid production. It's not always easy to replace that, especially at the price tag of $1.6 million. It's just not easy to replace that. You can find other guys to do it, but it may not be as cheap. So if they can get Darrell Williams back for under $2 million, and I think maybe they can, again, depends on who teams are looking for, depends on who else is out there at running back in the draft and in free agency. So you never know exactly where these prices are going to go. But if they could get Darrell Williams back for, say, another 2-year contract at $2 million or less, I'm all in. I really want Darrell Williams to come back and do his thing for us again next year. Valuable guy. If the price tag starts climbing up to $3 and $4 million, it's not that you can't do it, but you're starting to bump up against, are we getting value at that spot? And we're already kind of clustered a little bit tight on salary cap anyway. So if it gets past $2 million and we're pushing up at $3 or $4 million a season, I'm going to start to back away from the table on that kind of a deal. So that's how I'm feeling on Darrell Williams. Love to see him back. Hope Kansas City can get him back. Hopefully the price tag is under $2 million a season. Excuse me. Jerick McKinnon had played in 13 games this year, 13 catches for 107 yards, 2 carries for 18 yards. Didn't get a lot of touches, but he's playing some special teams too. So at $850,000, I would love to see them bring McKinnon back and let him fight for a roster spot. I saw enough throughout the season that I would love to see them bring McKinnon back and let him fight there. Same thing with Derek Gore. All right, Derek Gore had 115 offensive snaps, 64 special team snaps. He showed up in 11 games, only 8 catches, 51 carries for 256 yards. So his yards per carry were good. Excuse me a minute. His yards per carry were good. I would love to have Derek Gore back. You can have him back for almost nothing. He is an exclusive rights free agent. So if you want him back, and I do, I would love to have Derek Gore coming back in for me at the running back spot. The price, I don't know exactly the price, and who cares? It's really cheap. It's somewhere in the $700, $800, $1,000 price tag. So it doesn't get any cheaper than that. I would love to have Derek Gore back. So love to have Williams back. Love to have Gore back. Love to have McKinnon back fighting for a spot. Excuse me, the dust is getting to me here in my studio. Brings us to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's already on contract, and I have no desire to change that. He'll be at a $2.9 million price tag this year. Edwards-Helaire is probably not going to be the offensive weapon that we all thought or hoped he might be when the Chiefs drafted him. Having said that, he's still productive. Last year, he only got to play in 10 games, 19 catches for 129 yards, so not a lot there, but 119 carries for over 500 yards. So running the ball, he's productive, he's producing. I would love to have him back. He'll be coming back at $2.9 million. There's no reason not to. Edwards-Helaire, still a good athlete, still productive, still a threat. I love having him there in the running back room. So the price is right. There's really no decision to be made there. So if you can get Williams back, that gives you basically your whole running back set next year. Darrell Williams, Derek Gore, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you're spending all of, I don't know, $4 or $5 million to do that. Give me another $1 million for Michael Burton at your fullback spot. He didn't play a lot, 94 snaps on offense, 207 on special teams. But I'd love to have Michael Burton back as well. It's just nice to have a fullback. He played that role pretty well. They didn't use him a lot. But you can bring him back in for, $850,000, $900,000 next year. And that's your running back room. It's back together again. And, I don't really have a desire to draft a running back this offseason. If there were somebody in free agent, and I haven't studied this extensively, if there were somebody in free agency that you could pick up, say at $2.5 million or less, $2 million, who can catch passes and who can run between the tackles and who can do blitz pickups well, then you give that a look, because you would like to add another guy in here who can produce, but you don't have to. You were fine with it. Kansas City, Andy Reid really seems to not want to run the football a lot. I heard all season long from all kinds of announcers as they were broadcasting the Chiefs game, Kansas City should run the ball more, run the ball more, run the ball more. Well, guess what? Andy Reid probably ain't going to run the football more, okay? He's always loved to pass the ball to those running backs. He's never really cared too much about establishing a run game. He basically likes to do it just enough to keep defenses honest, to keep them off balance a little bit. He doesn't really care to try to dominate the running game. It's not that he can't do it. It's not that he won't do it. It's just, it's kind of unlikely that he's going to revamp the offense and try to run the football a lot. So, yeah, I would love to see them add a guy in who can catch more passes out of the backfield. Edwards-Helaire is not doing as much of that as we all kind of sort of thought that he would. But we'll see. If all they do is bring back the same guys as last year, those 5 guys, they are fine. And they fit what Andy Reid wants to do. And they were fine last year, and they'll be fine again next year. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at. And who knows, Edwards-Helaire, if he has a healthy season, he could produce a lot more, especially running between the tackles. He seems to be very comfortable doing that. That's your running backs. Excuse me again. Let's look at tight ends, okay? I'll probably do the tight ends, and then we'll do the wide receivers in a separate video, okay? So tight ends, Travis Kelce. Kelce, when you step back and look at his season statistically, it was about the same as usual. He had 92 catches for over 1,000 yards, over 1,100 yards. It was about the same. Where you saw the difference at, and this is kind of important, his yards per catch were fewer. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but his yards per catch were noticeably fewer than in past seasons, about 2 yards per catch. And this was true of almost all the pass catchers on the Kansas City Chiefs roster this year. All of them, just about all of them, had fewer yards per catch. They were still catching passes and they were still producing, but they weren't catching them for as many yards downfield on average as they had in their previous seasons in their career. Same thing for Travis Kelce. Now, the reasons for that, again, I've covered this so much in past videos, I'm not going to drag you through it again too much. But the time clock that Mahomes had to pass the football was shorter than ever. 2.5 seconds on average. That was the average for most of the season. Defenses knew that. They were dropping that extra guy back into the box, back into coverage. So not only was Mahomes up against a shorter clock than usual, but he was throwing against more defenders than usual. You heard about 2 deep all year. It was less about 2 deep than about them just clobbering Travis Kelce. And that's the point I want to get to. They had an extra man back there. They had the extra safety that afforded them the ability to stick to Travis Kelce with one man, still have guys over the top. It afforded them the ability to just clobber Travis Kelce. I don't remember exactly what week it was, somewhere in week 6 or 7. I remember Travis Kelce, and you could watch his body language all through the first 6 weeks of the season. Just extreme frustration, extreme irritation, knowing what they were up against, knowing what defenses were doing to them. And you almost saw it like it started to click with him. He almost decided, hey, these people are playing me so tight and they are hitting me so much at the line of scrimmage. I'm going to forget about my route for a second, and I'm going to clobber who's ever at the line of scrimmage, and then I'm going to take off and run my route. And that really seemed to be the difference for him. You know, he made jokes about, I think about his age or his injuries during the season or something of that nature. Really, defenses were just trying to beat the crap out of him all year long. And they could do that because they could toss the extra man over the top and they could still get to Mahomes with a compressed clock. So Kelce paid the price for that. Still a lot of catches, still a lot of yards, but fewer yards per catch than we're used to seeing him do by a significant amount statistically. So Kelce's coming back. He's at $8.9 million. It's a steal for next year. How much is he going to feel like he can keep playing? I still think he has plenty more time in him, but he'll be coming back. Kansas City Chiefs will be using him again extensively next season. They're going to need him desperately. But that's what's happening with him statistically. You're seeing that yards per catch drop because defenses were beating the crap out of him at the line of scrimmage, and they still had a guy over the top to handle whenever he got over that. But that's what you saw a lot from Kelce this past year. Sticking with the tight ends, Blake Bell. Blake Bell is a blocking tight end. He had all of 9 catches last year, which is just barely more than his career average. Usually he's good for 6 to 10 catches a season, and that's it. He's not in there to catch the football. Blake Bell is in there to block. And they put in a lot of extra tight ends this year. You could see it starting all the way back in week 3 and 4, and all through the season. They kept in that second tight end a lot this season, and they were there almost exclusively to block. And they were almost exclusively there to block the edges where the tackles were struggling all season long. Both tackle spots were struggling with those edge rushers, and they kept Kelce in closer to the line of scrimmage more often than usual this year. I felt like, I don't know if statistically that holds up, but I felt like you saw Kelce hanging around the line of scrimmage and right there in the box and right there behind the tackles a lot more. Blake Bell got 322 snaps this year, also played on special teams. Blake Bell is, a free agent. You can have him back, I think, for about $1 million. I would bring him back. He's playing special teams. He's blocking on offense. I would definitely bring back Blake Bell. Same thing for Noah Gray. Noah Gray is not a free agent. Drafted last year. Noah Gray caught all of 7 passes. Okay, now I was advocating in the offseason that he was no Travis Kelce, but that if you wanted to, you could use him for a lot of underneath stuff, and that defenses wouldn't really want to contribute hardly any resources to covering Noah Gray. He gets all of 7 catches this year. I was amazed at how much he got on the field, 289 snaps on offense, and has all of 7 catches. Really, really, really surprising this year that Noah Gray got on the field that much and had that few of catches. And I don't know if that's because Mahomes wasn't really looking for him, but I think a lot of it was they were just using Blake Bell and Noah Gray to block so much. You could see it play after play after play. Those tight ends not going anywhere, but almost being a 6th offensive lineman and kind of a dual threat kind of a guy. Oh, by the way, we can send this guy out for a pass if we want to, but that's really not what the Chiefs were doing. For the most part, they were keeping Blake Bell and keeping Noah Gray right there at the line of scrimmage, and that's why, they have all of 16 catches put together, even though they played, well over 600 snaps this season between the two of them. They're in there to block, and the reason they're in there to block is because the tackles are having so much trouble there with the edge rushers. But anyway, Noah Gray's coming back, $903,000. If you want to bring back Bell and Noah Gray, and of course Gray's coming back anyway, you're less than $2 million for both of those guys put together, so there's no reason not to bring them back. And then at tight end, I've got Joe Fortson. I saw some websites had him listed at wide receiver. He's such a big guy. To me, he's a tight end. Whatever you want to call him, if you want to call him a wide receiver, tight end, I don't care. I'm not going to argue about it. I've got him classified as a tight end. But with Joe Fortson, he's an exclusive rights free agent. You can bring him back for very cheap, just $600,000-$700,000, something like that. Very, very cheap. I haven't researched the exact price. But you can bring him back for very little, and that basically brings your whole tight end group back. I don't feel the need, again, to draft another tight end this year. You already did that last year with Noah Gray. I think Noah Gray can make some catches this year, if the Chiefs want to use him, if Patrick Mahomes trusts him. And again, that's always a thing, that the trust between a receiver and the quarterback has to be built up. The quarterback has to feel comfortable with that, and the offensive coordinator has to be calling plays for that. We didn't see the Chiefs call a lot of pass plays for 2 tight ends going out for passes. 2 tight ends were in there quite a bit, but usually that second guy was in there to block like an extra offensive lineman. So I'm going to do wide receivers in a second video. One more thing I did want to add. For those of you who watched the finances video last week, we covered so many numbers. I need to make 2 quick changes, okay? So hang with me. Mecole Hardman is also one of the higher paid players on the team, checking in at, sorry, give me 1 second, $4.4 million. I didn't include him, and I also didn't include Juan Thornhill at 3.1. So basically what that does, and some of you may have already caught this and posted it in the comments, basically what that does, that changes it to your top 11 players would be making about $166 million. But still, if you drop out Clark and you drop out Hitchens, you still kind of have that $23 million to work with. So not a major change there, but I did want to include that, kind of an accounting thing. I want to make sure you guys have the best information. So instead of 9 guys at 154, you're really looking at your top 11 guys making $164 million. And what that means is, instead of having a little over $1 million per player for the rest of the roster, you're a little bit under $1 million per player for the rest of the roster. Just a little bit less breathing room there that I didn't include last week, so I apologize for that, but I did want to include that in there for last week's accounting error. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to just turn right around with another wide receiver video. We'll post that too. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.